The night they stood on my doorstep, soaked from the rain and trembling in ways that had nothing to do with the cold, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet before a single word was spoken. Their eyes held stories I wasn't ready to hear, and yet somehow, in that one suspended moment, I already knew my life would never be the same again. Before we go any further, if you enjoy emotional, real, life-inspired stories like this one, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Stories Beyond the Porch. Your support helps these stories reach more hearts like yours. I had always lived quietly, almost invisibly, in a small rented house at the edge of town, where the streetlights flickered more than they shone and the nights felt longer than they should. Life had not turned out the way I imagined when I was younger. The dreams of building something meaningful, of being someone people relied on, had slowly faded into a routine of long workdays, empty dinners, and the soft hum of loneliness filling the space. Where laughter used to be, I told myself I was content, but deep down I knew I was simply surviving, not living. Then, on a night thick with rain and the weight of unspoken things, two figures appeared at my door, and survival quietly turned into something far more complicated. They introduced themselves with tired smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes, their voices soft, hesitant, as though they feared being turned away before they even finished their sentences. They said they were sisters, though not by blood, and that they had nowhere else to go. They said they only needed one night. Just one. I remember standing there, heart pounding, mind racing, trying to process the strange combination of urgency and vulnerability in their presence. My house was small, my life already crowded with worries, and yet something in me refused to let them walk back into the storm. As they stepped inside, the rainwater dripping from their clothes onto my worn wooden floor, I felt an unfamiliar sense of responsibility settle on my shoulders. It wasn't heavy at first. It felt almost natural, like this was something I was meant to do, even if I didn't understand why. I offered them dry clothes, warm tea, and the spare mattress I kept folded in the corner of my room. They thanked me with eyes full of something deeper than gratitude, something that looked like relief mixed with fear, as if kindness itself had become something rare in their world. That night, sleep refused to come easily. I lay awake, listening to the soft sounds of movement from the next room, wondering what kind of life leads two young women to a stranger's doorstep in the middle of the night. I imagined the stories they weren't ready to tell, the pain they were carrying, the hope they were barely holding on to. My own life had taught me that sometimes people don't ask for help until they are at their breaking point, and something told me these two were standing right at the edge. Morning came slowly, the rain easing into a gentle drizzle, the gray sky matching the heaviness I felt in my chest. I made breakfast, unsure of what to say, unsure of how to act, but determined not to make them feel like a burden. When they emerged from the room, their faces looked softer, as though sleep had given them a brief escape from whatever haunted them. We ate together in silence at first, the clinking of utensils the only sound between us, until one of them finally spoke. She told me they had been living in temporary places for months, moving from one situation to another, always promised stability, always left disappointed. She spoke of broken trust, of people who offered help only to take something in return, of dreams that kept shrinking with every passing day. Her sister listened quietly, nodding, her eyes fixed on her cup, as if afraid to look up and reveal too much. I felt a tightening in my chest as I realized how young they were to be carrying so much weight, how unfair it was that the world had already asked so much of them. They said they would leave after breakfast, that they didn't want to overstay their welcome, but something in me resisted the idea of them walking out into uncertainty again. I heard myself offering them more time, more space, more than I had originally intended. I didn't know why, and I didn't know how long it would last, but I knew I couldn't send them away, not when they looked like they were finally able to breathe, even if just a little. The days that followed were not easy. My routine changed overnight. The quiet I had grown used to was replaced with movement, with soft laughter, with the sounds of life filling my home again. At first I felt awkward, unsure of my place in their world and unsure of how they fit into mine. I worried about boundaries, about expectations, about the possibility that this temporary arrangement could turn into something complicated and painful. But as time passed, those worries slowly gave way to something else, connection. We began to talk more. They shared pieces of their past in fragments, as if testing whether it was safe to reveal more. I learned about their childhoods, marked by instability and loss, about the dreams they once had before life forced them to grow up too fast. I shared my own story, the quiet disappointments, the paths I didn't take, the loneliness I had never quite learned to articulate. In each other's stories, we found reflections of our own pain, our own longing for something better. Still, not everything was smooth. There were moments of tension, of misunderstanding, of fear that this fragile sense of family we were building could collapse at any moment. Sometimes I worried that I was becoming too attached, that I was setting myself up for heartbreak. Other times I feared I wasn't doing enough, that my help was too small, too late, to truly make a difference in their lives. The weight of responsibility grew heavier, no longer light and natural, but pressing, demanding, forcing me to confront parts of myself I had long avoided. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, I came home to find one of them sitting on the front steps, her face streaked with tears. She looked up at me with eyes full of despair and whispered that she felt like a burden, like she didn't deserve the kindness she was receiving. Her words cut deeper than I expected. In that moment, I realized how deeply their pain ran, how difficult it was for them to believe in a world that had given them so many reasons not to. I sat beside her, not knowing what to say, only knowing that silence wouldn't be enough. I told her that kindness is not something you earn, that it's something we give because we believe in each other, because we believe that everyone deserves a place to feel safe. My voice shook as I spoke, not because I was unsure, but because I was speaking as much to myself as to her. I realized that I, too, had spent much of my life feeling unworthy of kindness, of connection, of love. Slowly, she leaned into my shoulder, and for the first time, I felt the full weight of what it meant to truly be there for someone. Not just offering shelter, but offering presence, understanding, and the willingness to stay, even when it's hard. That night, something shifted between us. The distance that once separated us began to dissolve, replaced by a sense of trust that felt both fragile and powerful. As weeks turned into months, our lives became intertwined in ways I never expected. We cooked together, laughed together, argued, apologized, learned, and grew. My house no longer felt like a place I returned to out of habit, but a place I came home to, a place that held warmth, noise, and meaning. The emptiness that once filled my days slowly gave way to purpose, to the quiet satisfaction of knowing that my presence mattered, that my actions made a difference, even if only in small ways. But life, as it often does, found a way to test that fragile sense of stability. Opportunities came for them, chances to move forward, to build independent lives, to pursue the dreams they had once thought were impossible. These opportunities brought excitement, but also fear, and, for me, an unexpected sense of loss. I realized that the very thing I had hoped for them, their freedom, their growth, also meant the possibility of them leaving. One night, as we sat together in the living room, the air heavy with unspoken thoughts, one of them finally said what we had all been avoiding. She said they had been offered a place to stay and work in another city, a chance to start fresh. She said they didn't know what to do, that they were torn between the comfort of what they had found here and the hope of something more. I listened, my heart aching, my mind struggling to balance my own feelings with what I knew was best for them. I wanted to ask them to stay. I wanted to hold onto the life we had built together, to the sense of family we had created out of strangers and circumstance. But I also knew that true care doesn't mean holding someone back, even when letting go hurts. I told them that they deserved every opportunity to build the life they dreamed of, that they should never feel guilty for choosing growth, even if it meant leaving. That night I lay awake again, much like the first night they arrived, but this time the silence felt different. It was filled with memories, with laughter, with moments of connection that had changed me in ways I never expected. I realized that, regardless of what happened next, my life had already been transformed. I was no longer just surviving. I was living, caring, feeling, and opening my heart in ways I once believed were no longer possible. The day they left was one of the hardest and most beautiful days of my life. We hugged, we cried, we promised to stay in touch, though we all knew that life has a way of pulling people in different directions. As I watched them walk away, carrying their bags and their hopes, I felt both empty and full at the same time. Empty because they were no longer there, full because of everything they had given me without even realizing it. In the weeks that followed, the house felt quiet again, but not in the same lonely way it once had. The silence now carried echoes of laughter, of late-night conversations, of shared meals and shared pain. It reminded me that connection, once formed, never truly disappears. It stays with us, shaping who we are and how we see the world. Over time, messages came, updates about their new lives, their challenges, their small victories. They spoke of finding stability, of building friendships, of learning to trust again. Each message filled me with pride and gratitude, not because I had saved them, but because I had been allowed to walk alongside them for a part of their journey. And in doing so, I had found a part of myself I thought I had lost. Looking back, I realized that the night they stood on my doorstep, asking for only one night, they gave me far more than they ever asked for. They reminded me of the power of kindness, of the importance of opening our hearts, even when it feels risky. They showed me that family is not always defined by blood, but by choice, by presence, by the willingness to show up for one another when it matters most. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of someone who once showed up for you or someone you wish you could show up for, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive and reaching those who need them most. And before you go, I have a special request for you. Leave a comment with a single line about someone who changed your life in a quiet but powerful way. Your words might be the encouragement someone else needs today. Because sometimes the most meaningful moments in our lives begin with an unexpected knock at the door, a simple request, and the courage to say yes, even when we don't know what comes next.